evening, everyone. Hello. I want to welcome everyone to our January 10th, 6 p.m. agenda work session. Shannon, will you do a roll call?
Mayor Williams,
Here.
Vice Mayor Helton. Here. Councilmember Cagle.
Here.
Councilmember Chauncey.
Here.
Councilmember Witt. Here. Assistant City Manager Custer.
Here.
City Attorney Leach.
Here. Under old business, we will have ordinance number 1080, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of East Ridge, Tennessee, to amend the zoning regulations and the zoning map for the City of East Ridge, Tennessee, so as to rezone the property located at 1023 South Seminole Drive and 3118 Mill Road, tax map 156N F016 from C2 General Commercial District, O1 Office District, and R1 Residential District to R3 Residential Apartment District. This would be first reading tonight, so it would be on old business next week.
I believe, Mayor, it will be on, it would actually be up for first reading at the next meeting. But I received an email today from Mr. Patel stating that he will need until at least February the 10th to get the necessary things completed. What you will see in your packet was the actual traffic study. That was completed, but the renderings are not.
Okay, so this would need to be moved to the agenda session, work session on the 24th.
That's correct.
Does anyone have any questions or discussions this time?
I read the traffic thing, and it says that peak hours, that there would not be that much more congestion.
Yes, sir.
Also, then, there was a comment in there that our traffic engineer said that he could go up there and adjust the time limit on the red light, even make it lesser of a congestion where you let that traffic out on Seminole, turn left, so.
Yes, sir, and that was one of the things that we discussed, and obviously that was the biggest, one of the main concerns were the traffic. But the traffic engineer and Mr. Patel could be here around February the 10th, so the traffic engineer can explain that. And the engineer that he hired is actually the one that does all the work up and down Ringo Road. That was a former engineer, Mr. Meyer, and he has the ability to help manipulate that to make it flow more freely.
Just want to be sure it's a good way out.
Yes, it honestly didn't come out the way I thought it would.
Agreed. Does anyone have anything else concerning 1080 at this point? All right, we'll move on to new business. Item A, a numbered ordinance to amend the distance requirements to churches, schools for beer sales. Mr. Custer, do you have anything on this to discuss, or can someone from the beer board come forward and discuss?
I'm trying to get to the name. Yeah, I was trying to make it in the traffic study.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Currently, the distance requirements for an establishment to sell beer is 250 feet from any school or church. On November the 5th, the beer board voted to change those distance requirements to 0 feet. If approved, this means the beer ordinance number 858 will have to be amended to reflect the change from 250 to 0.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. I thought the beer board was there to enforce the rules and the regulations of the city of East Ridge, not to be making the rules. And also, we are the one requesting this, and not an individual that's wanting to put a restaurant, sell beer next to a church. So they have no applicant for this. They are.
I'm not sure.
No, there's not any applicants that have applied. We're just trying to get things set up and move forward in line with the state of Tennessee on the alcohol content and so forth with various beers, facilitate so we don't have to come back each time we have a meeting. We're also trying to stimulate business development in the city. There's tons of people keep coming to us and saying, we want nice restaurants. And the only way we're going to get nice restaurants is to be able to put them on some of the property. Unfortunately, in East Ridge, we have a high abundance of churches on Ringo Road that, kind of interfere with that to some degree. And we're just trying to move forward. But no one has applied at this point.
Mr. Wilson, state your name.
Oh, okay. My name is Earl Wilson, and I'm on the beer board with 4 other members. I just have to be on here. We also did put an addendum in there that anybody that is going to sell alcohol in any of those places, that there will be no alcoholic beverages sold outdoor on a patio or anything like that from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesday night and Sunday night. I don't know if that's in your information, but
I didn't get some information.
okay. I know when we
Right here.
put this forward, that was one of the stipulations, is that correct, Jen? Okay.
No, we don't have those details, we just have what
Okay.
Mr. Custer.
That was one of the other things. We also asked for an 8-foot privacy fence and Leyland cypress trees are fast-growing type shrubberies to be a sound barrier or a visual barrier from that point too. And that would be at the cost of whoever's developing that piece of property.
And all that would be spelled out in the ordinance.
Yes. But we were very meticulous about that. This got turned down a couple of times before we got, an agreement of, sight lines, noise and sound barriers, visual barriers, things of that nature.
And what are we going to do about the residents?
I'm not sure.
Up down Ringo Road, we have people that live right behind commercial property that's being sold for restaurants, SL here. Now, the distance is still to the other two, we would have to add in with the churches and the schools.
I haven't seen any of that. It's not a stipulation in the ordinance that for residential. It's only for,
Taken out.
it's only for public gathering places, parks, schools, and churches.
Right.
And schools aren't going on at night when most beer sales, or any sales like that would be going on. And one of the things, if a restaurant wanted to come in and choose not to sell beer, they can still come in and sell liquor. We can't stop them. They don't have to ask anybody's permission for it.
It's a lot of the state.
Right. They have to conform to state law. So if I want to open a tequila bar, next to, in the old Ryan's building with those churches, there's 3 churches within, 20 to 50 foot of that place, I could do that. Or another developer could do that. But we're trying to put, limitations on it where, there will be the visual barriers, the sound barriers, and then not being sold on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights during those times.
Yes, sir.
I was the chairman of the board at the time,
Thank you.
and Greg Shipley. And one of the reasons we did it was for the example of the Ryan's Restaurant, because there's a church that backs up to the back property of Ryan's. And one reason I brought it up, and on the other side is the coffee shop and church. And I talked to Danny, and he said he wouldn't have a problem with it. The reason we even a lot thought about it was because the city manager, the retired, we had talked to him a little bit, and we'd heard that there had been a few people that had been interested in the O'Briens. And they couldn't, at the time, couldn't sell beer because of the rules of the church and the 250 feet and all that. And we talked about privacy fences and, ordering out there with, landscaping to help noise down from these, if a restaurant wanted to come in. We just wanted to try to make sure that there was some way to get more better sit-down restaurants in this town. Like I said, liquor you can get through the state, you don't have to go through the city distribution.
Especially on the west end, it seems to be kind of stable.
Like a church, eight or nine churches on Ringo Road, and within one block, there's an additional 5, I think, and that's why we brought this up.
Thank you.
I know y'all mentioned Ryan's, the last one that brought in front of us about Ryan's, people out of Cleveland. And the last thing that we told them was, we would get in touch with the owner of the church. They never came back. Find out if we got in touch with the people, so they backed out before, found out if the church was here or not. So, and my thing is, I like to still have it brought in front of us on each individual basis. You know, I'm not against the beer, because the church next door don't mind it being sold, and I don't mind it being sold, because I don't live next door. So, I still like to be brought in front of us.
Would have had to be brought.
Well, it's brought before you, each permit's brought before you go.
But I'm talking about leaving the 250 foot there.
We just went through the beer board to try to get, you know, I know we couldn't make any rules or regulations without coming in front of the city council. And so that's why we needed to give you more work to do.
Well, I'd like to have a copy of everything y'all done. If you got a
You should
sheet,
have it.
a copy of what they turned in, what they're wanting to do, yeah, I'd like to have a copy of it.
We passed it to you, it's your choice whether you pass it or not, you know, we've done our due diligence. And, you know, it's in your hands.
If I read this thing, then I know, my vote's no, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go? All right, thank you. So we'll have more information contained in the ordinance.
That's correct. I'll get with Janet, make sure she gets back through the minutes, and we'll provide that information as soon as possible.
Thank you. Item B, another ordinance to be numbered, use on review for off-premise sign at Budgetel. We can't hear you, Lisa.
Almost to shut it off, sorry about that. So I'll start over, okay? Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Michael Howell, City of East Ridge Building Inspector. So Budgetel Inn and Suites is requesting to use the top portion of the East Ridge residence sign located at Ringo Road, Max Smith Road. The existing East Ridge residence sign is a legal non-conforming sign. Budgetel currently has 2 detached on-premise signs that are also legal non-conforming. Staff denied the original request based on the non-conforming off-premise sign requirements.
So what they did is they submitted an application to us and went under review. We denied it based on the way the current ordinance is written. Putting another sign on a non-conforming sign is just dilutes what we tried to accomplish with the sign ordinance initially.
Can we get that sign postcard down then?
The
The one that they're wanting to use?
No, because it's legally non-conforming right now, so unless it's damaged, that's why we don't want to add anything else to it. If it's damaged, or they go out of business, or whatever the case may be, then we can address it.
It's legal by being grandfathered, but it's non-conforming with the current standard.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this is your request. Presented.
That's correct.
The council will approve it or not. Any other question?
I've got a question for Kenny. In regards to the sign, does the business have to be, do they have to be out of business for X period, X amount of time for it to no longer be non, or legally non-conforming, and so at some point, will it just be removed?
Yes, we have a list of signs that we're working on currently that's been out of conformance for some time.
Okay, so is there a time limit?
There is.
What is that?
It's 108 days, Mom.
It's 30.
Oh, and the new one is 30. 30 after the closure of business. But that was it was the last sign on top of that originally? I don't remember.
No,
Back when it was the travel. Oh, the Holiday Inn? Was that the original Holiday Inn sign? I don't know. That's some. No, I think it was it one of the Holiday Inn? Back years ago, where the East Ridge residence is now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it
Was it the Holiday Inn?
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
I was thinking it's something else. Convention center.
Yeah, it wasn't even the same.
Yeah, and I believe that's why they want to change the faces on that sign that's currently there instead of trying to relocate it or move it. So they just changed the face.
And your staff denied the request, the original request?
That's correct.
This is an appeal. Council.
It is.
Any other questions? Somebody in the sign? Item C, another resolution, Board of Region Water Park.
Yes, we're still working on the agreements with the Dynamic Group as it relates to the hotel water park in the Florida Road. I actually had a meeting with a developer this afternoon to work on some terms. I believe we've come to an agreement to present to the IDB hopefully within the next week or so, and we'll continue to go that forward. But it's a promising project. It's been delayed, but I believe that we're going to be able to have that presentation before the IDB real soon.
Do you anticipate this actually being on the 24th?
Ideally, if I can have the IDB meeting and get the approval through the IDB and provide, I'd like to have that agreement to you all no less than 7 days after approval. Yeah. If that's the direction the IDB chooses to go.
So we'll leave it on the schedule. On the agenda.
Please.
Any questions?
They'll have to reschedule the IDB meeting, I think the one earlier was, okay, so we don't have to wait till following.
That's correct. If we get everything done and everybody's in agreement, then we'll go ahead and schedule a special call out. That way we can have this for the end of the month. We'll ask the chair first if she would schedule that.
Any other? Item D, new business, another resolution proposal from HHM for auditing services.
Yes, it's hard to believe that just gave us the audit at its time. But the state likes for us, they want us to go ahead and get our contract set so that we can start getting ready for the audit. So as soon as, because it takes a while, so that way we're able to continue on and get things going. And we've established a good relationship, and they always bring in new people each year. So we have new eyes looking at our financial transactions, and we never know what they're gonna ask for, which is what they're supposed to be doing.
Keep you on your toes.
Yes, they keep us on our toes. And also Jason has been, he understands the Board of Region Act, and he looks at, he glances at my submissions that I make and things, so he works with me on that also.
Austin, now also knows, seems that there have a slight increase.
Yes, well, of course, the state is requiring more with GASB standards, with pensions and liabilities and things. And then also, as we acquire, we have more funds, we have more money, we have more of everything. It just increases it. It takes a little more time to do stuff. And we also want to get to where we can do a CAFRA, which is a more detailed financial statement. More than what you get, it would be a little bit more detail to it. So that's our goal, to get to that point.
I have
$1,400.
$1,400.
Something in our
That's if they are requested, we are contracting with them to do our audit. If we ask them to do something else that does not pertain to the audit, then they will do that for us on an hourly basis. Like if you wanted them to review sales tax revenue or something, do a special project, then that would be separate. But the audit is covered under the contract.
Any other questions, council? Thank you. Item E, resolution to be numbered, agreement with Chattanooga Red Wolves as it relates to soccer fields.
Yeah, Mr. Rich, before you get started, this, if you'll notice, there's two back-to-back, but they're actually separate. The first agreement that Mr. Lifford's going to discuss is as it relates to the stadium field and the presentation that was presented at the last meeting.
At the last meeting, if you recall, there was Mr. Martino, who was the owner of the Chattanooga Red Wolves. He came to the city back, I want to say in November, and proposed and pitched the idea of wanting to work out an arrangement with the city wherein he identified two of the northern fields of the Camp Jordan complex and wanted to use those two northern fields to infuse, I think he said somewhere between $1 million and 1.2, give or take, million to develop a soccer training facility complex. There was photos that we had of it. And the idea that he pitched was he would like to host the training facility at the Camp Jordan site and build the complex for the use. It would be the city would own the facility. We would own it if they ever were to leave. The city would own the facility, but they would get to have some use to it. And at the time, we did not know what that limits of those uses were. Camp Jordan was acquired in part in the 70s, and at the time there were some land grants associated, recreational land grants, that were helping finance the purchase of the park back in the 70s. I have gone through several sources, whether it be the comptroller, MTAS, the park, or the Recreational Education Services of Tennessee. April Johnson is her name. And we've talked to Attorney Mark Mamontoff, who the comptroller suggested that we talk to, who deals a lot with these private arrangements. He's done the Smokies, he's done a lot of the arrangements up in Gatlinburg, and done some of the Bristol private negotiations on public lands. So that was where we took off from the meeting back in December. After that meeting, Mr. Custer and I had met with representatives from the state, April Johnson and a gentleman by the name of Jameson Sliger. We had spoken with 2 or 3 comptrollers and again Mark Mamontoff. Where we're going with this is determining, I researched all of the deeds of conveyance of Camp Jordan to the city back in the 70s, and then there was one, I want to say, what was Mr. Armour back in late 1990, was that 2000, whatever it was. I've looked at that one. That was the far northern portion of Camp Jordan. And as it relates to a deed restriction, I don't find anything in a deed restriction at the time of the conveyance. But the homework's not done. We have to look now at the grants and see what use restrictions there are with the grants. And there are, in fact, some restrictions. And that was what our meeting, Mr. Custer and I had on Tuesday with the Tennessee Rec Education Service Director, April Johnson. And we have identified what we understand to be the permitted uses, which is the Red Wolves cannot have exclusive use of this facility at peak hours. And that essentially, it would be they would have it for the minimal time, but still allow them to accomplish what they're hoping to accomplish. What we now have learned, Mr. Custer, I think, got a letter yesterday from the general manager, Sean McDaniel, of the Red Wolves, which essentially said they want to have, their season runs from February to October, and they would like to have access to that facility, the training facility is what we're calling it, on Monday through Friday, I think from, give or take, 8:30 to 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, which the Tennessee Recreation Education Services indicated those are non-peak hours. Their research has shown that the peak hours is afternoon time, after schools, And so Mr. McDaniel has indicated that their typical time to use it would be Monday through Friday, around, give or take 8:30 to 1 o'clock, we'll say. There may be nights where they decide they want to host a preseason game, and they want to sort of promote the city and do something on the East Ridge side for their preseason games, which would be in the month of February and March only are their preseason games. And they might have a night or two on a Saturday night where they would want to host a preseason game. Other than that, Mr. McDaniel did not indicate right now a need for evening use or even afternoon use of the training facility. To the extent that they're not using it, the training facility would be available for use in accordance with Park and Recreation's customary rules and regulations. And it seems to us that Mr. McDaniel is in favor of that. What we don't know at this time is whether or not the Recreation Educational Services is okay with that. That's where we sit today as it relates to the usage and whether or not they permit. If they permit the usage, then this body will have some determination as to whether or not they want that arrangement. But there will be other things we'll need to negotiate too. If they're going to build the facility, the question will be who's going to maintain that building. If there's an event, let's just say a soccer preseason game, if there's a preseason game and it attracts 2,000 people, I don't know, 1,500 people, who is responsible for cleaning up the field and the stands, the concession area for that respective event? Alternatively, if the city hosts an event or allows a I'm not a soccer person, but a Southeast Soccer Association tournament, whatever they're called, Kenny would know.
BCNL.
Okay. Let's just assume that they commit. That's not a Red Wolves, but it's something the city wants to have because the city likes to have recreational weekend tournaments like we have softball and lacrosse and other events. Well, then we need to figure out who's going to be responsible for cleanup of those type tournaments. Is it something we would put off on the tournament leaders and directors? So there's still some stuff to work out. This is a very, very long way of saying the issues right now are what usage, if any, is permitted by a private entity, and that would be determined by the Tennessee Recreation and Education Services. And we expect to hear back from them, we hope, sometime next week. And then the next issues will be what is the arrangement this body wants to have with the other type issues. Maintenance of it, lights, cleanup. If something happens to the stadium, or the training facility, if it needs a new, upkeep or something. So who's mowing it and stuff. So those are kind of the issues. Mr. Custer and I hope to have those flushed out. We hope really by the middle of next week. We hope that may not be the case. It may be the latter part of next week or right before in 2 weeks. But we will keep you notified. But that's where we sit right now. Oh, one other thing. I think, if I'm not correct, Mr. Custer, he has proposed some sort of an annual payment also in connection with the infusion of the construction of the training facility as well. That I need to run by Mr. Attorney Mark Mamontoff and the comptroller, because there are certain arrangements the city can make, but it's got to be structured right. But if it's, we got to figure out how we would structure the payment, if there's going to be any, if the city's going to take on any added cost in relation to this training facility, how we would want to take that and offset it through payment through the training facility annual fund that they would, or annual payment they would do as well. But we're still working that as well.
Any questions?
Yes, sir. You said you couldn't find no limitation of use.
Just on a recording, just in the registrar's office.
Okay, you couldn't find it to the, I've got a letter here from the Department of Environmental Services. Sent to Mayor Pruitt, it says, enclosed, you will find a copy of the notice of limitation of use that you have sent us. Although the notice of limitation of use will not be physically attached, it must be recorded with the deed, and the book page number should be referenced. Your retribution will be a receipt. If that wasn't done, but then we were still receiving funds after this.
And we talked to Ms. Johnson about that, and we indicated, and I told her, it could be that if there is a limitation of, or notice of limitation that's recorded, It may be that it has a reference, the book and page number, the deed. There's a lot of things that can go on. I'm still going to continue to research the registrar's office. In talking to Ms. Johnson, she indicated that it's possible that it may just have never got reported. But to the extent that this arrangement were to be consummated, those notice of limitations would, one, she said they need to be updated anyway, but that would occur. So there would be something that's reported to the extent there isn't one. But even if there is one, she said those will be updated anyway.
I'm reading this over here that, Mr. Helton prepared the public property identified in the general warranty deed attached as Exhibit A is the limitations of use, so. But I don't see, I'm like you, I've got the deed here, there's nothing in it.
Right.
It says Exhibit A, but there's nothing attached to it.
So even if there isn't anything recorded, the notice of limitations still apply. So it's kind of immaterial whether or not they are recorded, they still apply. And Ms. Johnson, we hope in the next 7 days, indicates to us what, within those parameters of the notice of limitations, is the city allowed to operate with a private entity for purposes of allowing usage of the fields. And that's what we're hoping to receive, some sort of a confirmation or acceptance correspondence from them, or denial. We don't know what we're going to get from them, but it'll be in the next, we hope, in the next 7 days.
This letter that I gave you from Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
says any exclusive use. My understanding is that they cannot go down there and build a storage building and for storage use in any facilities, rather allowing use facilities will put the funds all in jeopardy.
And I asked her that specific question. Her response, and Mr. Jameson Sliger, who is a contemporary of hers and also works in that recreation and education department, their explanation was, because I asked specifically, I said, what about a field house? Or even if the Red Wolves have their, within this training facility, generally under bleachers, you have some office space. I said, what if they even had their office out here? And I'm not saying they are, I'm just asking for exploratory discussion. And the response I got from them was, they did not have an issue with a storage facility being used to store items that they actually weren't in support of. That would be okay to have something to store. That's not necessarily interfering with the usage of the fields, which is what their primary purpose or concern is usage of the fields at large.
They gave us an example of a park that constructed a water tank that partially served the park and partially served other parts of the city. And the question that they had was, we know it serves the park, but it also serves another portion. And they had to look into that to great detail, but I believe they even allowed that to be accepted. As long as it still serves a purpose with the park, even like any storage facility or building, it still serves a purpose for the park, even if it's stored equipment. Whoever, depends on whoever uses it.
Well, I got one more thing, and I'll let you. I've looked at this, and I can't find no documentation back then. I was told that the Osborne Foundation donated $100,000, $200,000 to build that stadium and that soccer field there. That's the foundation. Then I was told that one of the Osborne family members donated a certain amount of dollars to have that sign put up with Mr. Osborne's name on it. But I can't find no documentation on this. Family members that I talked to, they don't seem to remember anything about it. But if I call the Osborne Foundation, they're not going to feel it different. Give me that information. So, did you, Mr. Attorney, call the Osborne Foundation?
Sure, I'll do that.
Find out, because I would,
Sure, absolutely, I'll do that. I'll put-
Osborne just put money in with limitations, but then we don't think we still on their toes, so.
Yeah. I'll call and ask that very question and try to dig and ask them if there were any restrictions that they gave. And I'm happy to ask if they have a preference as well.
Is there any other questions, council? Move to item F, and under resolution, East Ridge Recreation Soccer and Chattanooga Redwoods Partnership.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this actually went before the Eastern Football Club Board last night for discussion. A similar partnership framework agreement went to Readout Soccer Association, who has signed, I believe, to Catoosa County, and it's going around to multiple soccer organizations. They want to be able to, as it states in the agreement, to provide pro player appearances, to be able to provide goalkeeper training, and all of this is for not an academy program, but for the rec level program. And if you look at our rec level program alone, we've had, just this year in 2018, 2,685 individuals playing soccer for the city of East Ridge, just this year. So that would provide them with opportunity for better training, more experience, and it comes at no cost to us. They're actually willing to pay $1,200 a year for 3 years to see how everything goes, and then offer fundraising for ticket sales for the actual club itself. So there's some good things that they're trying to do and trying to promote through the sports.
Sir, questions?
Yes, sir. The last thing that it says that we cannot go into an agreement with another soccer association. Are these people, do they have contracts with other groups other than these three?
Do the Red Wolves subcontracts? They do, to make it all one group.
But then we can't let another association come in and do the same thing.
Yes, well, UTC schools, stuff like that will be able to. What they're trying to do is avoid another academy, basically, which is the same thing, if you'll recall, that CFC did when they signed their agreement. CFC can play here, but they can't have an academy. So the Red Wolves are just partnering with the Rec Association because they don't have the ability to start an academy within Camp Jordan at this time.
Council, any other questions? Move to item G, and then the resolution approval of public-private venture with Battlefield Outdoor.
Okay, Battlefield Outdoors is an outdoor recreational establishment specializing in healthy adventures through bicycle, kayak, disc golf, rentals, and guided tours. They've approached the city and Parks and Rec Department about using space at Camp Jordan to promote their outdoor adventure, and they want to be able to set up in a predetermined space and rent bicycles, kayaks, canoes, disc golf equipment, and possibly even sell some of their equipment. In return, they want to enter into a 5-year agreement with the city and pay a commission rate. Year 1, 10% of gross sales. Year 2, 12%. Year 3, 15%. Year 4, 17%. And then year 5, 20%. Their basic operation times are sunrise to sunset. On the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, beginning April 1st, running through September the 30th. Additional approved hours can be approved by the Parks and Rec Department, specifically maybe like holidays and peak times. So, David Bridges is the owner-operator. David, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Mayor, council members, thanks for having me tonight. So yeah, what I'm offering is a similar service to what we do over at Fort Oglethorpe now, and that is that we basically use the West Chickamauga Creek access, West Chick Creek, and the spurs of it are navigable blueway. And basically we offer shuttle services for kayaks And then we also rent bicycles for the battlefield currently. So basically, it's a similar type setup. Basically, I believe that this will bring additional interest for the families when they're coming in to do their recreational things, such as your soccer and other things at home. This gives people an opportunity to do things at the park and stay on the park property and offer activities for the families that are coming in to enjoy the area. And so that's basically what we're talking about.
Thank you, sir. Councilman, any questions?
What size building you talking about putting down here?
I'm not really gonna put a building. What I've asked for is for a space, one of the RV spots for us to have a little office area, and then basically just a canopy tent that we will take up and put down daily as we're doing our business there.
I heard him say he's gonna be selling,
Will be disc golf discs.
so
Disc golf discs,
he'll be selling.
selling disc golf discs and renting those for use
So
of
he'll be required to get a East Ridge City license.
Yes, once he sets up in that location.
Did we have a similar type of business come in over by the ball fields a couple summers ago? I saw a fellow out there selling baseball bats, ball gloves, and things outside of the pit. You got a trailer out there.
That actually came in with a tournament. It was part of I want to say it was a week-long tournament that come in, and they were a sponsor, and they also brought their merchandising too.
I guess it's kind of similar to what we want to do. It's going to be a mobile.
Yes, and that's what the transient vendor.
Correct. So for instance, kayaks, I'll have to bring those in on trailers, for the immediate, and would have to use those to shuttle people. Basically, come Area Creek, you've got two drop-off points. One's at the mill at Graysville, the other one's at Deeks Road and Cloud Springs Road. You put them in there, and they basically can float back into the park. It's about a 3 to 4 hour trip, depending on how quick they go and that kind of stuff.
Now, you mentioned, Mr. Wilson, Sunrise to Sunset, did you say April 1st through September 30th? Did I get that right?
Yes, that's the timeframe that works good for the park and for District Bridges.
Okay, I just wanted to make notes of that. Thank you. Council, any other questions? All right, we'll move to item H. Actually, it is a numbered resolution, it's 2885, mayor's appointment of chairperson to the Beer Board. With the reappointment of the Beer Board members, there needs to be an appointment made for the chairman. So we don't have one at this point, so I would like to request the council to, it's in red here, to move this forward to the 6:30 agenda so we can take action on this.
Well, since you have the jurisdiction to make that unilateral decision, I generally like as a good best practice to memorialize everything with the resolution so that it helps our city clerk for historical purposes and preservation. To the extent this comes up and you make the nomination, my request would be that we just you all can pass a motion that memorializes that Mayor Williams has made that appointment. Can't really deny him that right because it's in the code already. But what I suggested to our city clerk was that let's pass a resolution that memorializes that he has in fact nominated whoever it is for the board. Similar to the way you all do the minutes. You all can vote to approve the minutes, and you're just voting to memorialize that those minutes reflect what action took place. And so that's similar to what I suggested to the city clerk, and I'd like to go for that practice going forward. Agreed. So that we've got good preservation of historical events.
But to move it from the working agenda to,
Yeah, that's
we
fine.
need to, we don't have to have a.
Yeah, we need to have a motion to move it up. Yes, I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we move it up to the 6:30.
We have a motion by Councilmember Witt and a second by Vice Mayor Elton. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Hilton? Yes. Councilmember Cagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Webb? Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Thank you. Item I, amendment of resolution, NFL Foundation Grassroots Program, General Field Support Funding.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this came up today from Southeast Tennessee Development District, which is our partners who actively seek grants for the city of East Ridge. We pay a membership fee to them, and they will apply for as many grants as we want them to at no additional charge. They came across this grant because they had heard that we were looking to try to fund a field house for East Ridge High School, and he had asked if we were still interested in that. This particular grant, the NFL Foundation Grassroots Program, they have funding. It's a 50-50 grant. Grants range from $50,000 to $250,000, depends on the project. So it would be at least $50,000 or up to $50,000 or up to $250,000, which coupled with our portion could be a $100,000 project to $500,000 project. Being that we have funds from the football club that could help with our match and also help us get the building that we're looking for. I also had him check into making sure that the combination of concession stand, restrooms, workout facility, and locker rooms would be a viable application, and he did say that it would. So the application's due at the end of this month. We do have time without having to move it forward tonight to address it at the next council meeting, so I would have a resolution ready for Attorney Lynchford to look at and by then have it ready to go. But you have the extra information along with the memo, behind the memo attached there, so that you can look at it and ask any questions that you may have.
I have a couple questions, but I'm gonna ask council to add any at this point. Do you have any, council have any questions concerning?
Yes, sir. How much money does the Alumni Association have?
That is a good question. I heard a number of anywhere between 100,000 to, someone might even mention the number of 300, but I've never heard that number before.
I think,
That's what I was gonna say, it's under 150.
my understanding is 75.
How much?
75,000, we have an additional, money that,
50,000.
50,000.
Billion addition. Yeah.
50,000 conditional on the concession stands. And that's from the county, so I think the combination, my understanding is that was 125.
So 125, okay.
Count the people.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So if we were to be able to afford that 250,000, that would get us well on our way on match.
And if the council decides this is the direction that they want to go as it relates to continuing to maintain those facilities, then, and us contributing to the construction, it's been kind of our stance this whole time of, truly having a public purpose. So I've met with Coach James, and him and Mr. Wilson have met and sat down and looked at several different options that could include public access the way it's built. If you incorporate just one or two of the tennis courts, which would allow us to go ahead and rehabilitate the other two tennis courts, you could create outdoor basketball, and then it would also have a public purpose similar to the rec center. So then what you would have is most of the children that walk up to the rec center, you would also have that load that would be shared between our rec center and that facility after school.
I know back when this was brought up for discussion, Mr. Miller said we didn't have money to do this with. Okay, so if we even agreed to let her ask for 250,000, then we don't have the 250 to match it with. Because it was, the way I understood it was going to be like something up in the 400,000s to build this thing.
And that, we're working on all the figures and stuff now. Because there's been so many different figures that's been thrown out there.
Correct.
And if we get closer to budget time, actually, with this grant, because I don't know when it will be announced, we can always build our match into it. Something I work with Finance Director Qualls is building matches into my grant budget every year for purposes like this, for when we come across grants that we would like to apply for, but we may not have the match for. So we try to do that every year, having a little bit of a cushion for some of these grant matches. So if we do have the 125 from the Alumni Association, and we are able to get the 250,000, that would just leave us 125,000, and that would give us 500,000 for this project. So if it's a $400,000 project, we've meet or exceed what we need. And we're also looking at still a tennis court grant, so that's still in the works as well. And that is something that is a year long. There is no cutoff date for that grant. It's through the United States Tennis Association, so there is no application deadline for that.
And with this being, if it's done with the public purpose aspect and actually truly being a recreational center also, which also relates to the parks, you can also use unsigned motel to pay debt services.
You would probably be able to seek reimbursement of the award.
Absolutely.
But basically, we're just trying to find any and every way that we can possibly fund this project and some of the other projects that we have, not only for the Eastridge High School, middle school recreation, but any of the other recreation that we have within the center of the city, the west end of the city, dog park, everything else that we've got going on right now.
Yeah, not Dylan. If we were able to make this happen, we would able to encompass the stuff, the things that others will want, like the tennis courts, because we've had the $20,000 sitting there to come up with a match for hoping to get a grant. So we would hope to turn over a turnkey project, finish tennis courts, basketball court, weight room, and then the way it would be structured is their access, the school's access would be from the backside near the stadium, and the public access would be from the front.
Any other questions, Council? The only one that I had was similar to what Councilman Cagle mentioned, is we do have two different donations. Would that impact anything with this, being able to receive this grant?
What type of donation are you referring to?
The Alumni Association and in Hamilton County.
That would not impact us at all.
Okay.
Because it does not, in anything that I've read, it does not specify.
As long as it's matched, regardless of how it's
Exactly.
matched. Okay. That was my question. Any other? That is all we have for the agenda session. And I apologize for running over, but we need to have it taken care of. So I will adjourn we hold off. Councilmember Cagle, do you have anything you'd like to discuss before we? Okay. That's no was it? Al. We will adjourn this meeting and we'll take a quick break, 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll start with our regular agenda.